Welcome to a most amazing program. If I haven't had the pleasure of connecting with you, either online or in person, my name is Judy Fitzgerald, and I'm a 12-year breast cancer survivor and founder of Sisters for Prevention. Our program today will feature some extraordinary people I am blessed to call friends. You will meet the brilliant creator of the vaccine himself, Dr. Vincent Tuohy, whom we owe incredible gratitude for his perseverance, tenacity, and patience. It would take 2 decades to finally receive sufficient funds to transition this vaccine from bench to bedside. The journey to bring this vaccine to the clinic has been arduous and at times seemed nearly impossible. But finally, in 2017, Dr. Tuohy was awarded a federal grant of $6 million to test his vaccine in a phase 1 clinical trial. Since meeting Dr. Tuohy and learning of this discovery, the women you will meet today have all worked tirelessly throughout the past 10 years for one common goal: to support Dr. Tuohy and his team. We lovingly dubbed this project the Pink Vaccine. And although each of us would work in our own way, we were always the united front and enjoyed attending and supporting each other's functions. For the past several weeks, we have celebrated the start of the phase 1 clinical trial of this vaccine in women. The women who are receiving the vaccine were all diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer within the last 3 years. Sadly, triple-negative breast cancer is the most lethal form of the disease and is most common among those with the BRCA mutation and African American and Latino women. However, you will learn from my dear friend Tony Turchi today, who meets none of these criteria, but is a survivor of triple-negative breast cancer, that no one is exempt from this disease. To tell the vaccine story, there's no one more worthy than Dr. Tuohy himself. So Dr. Tuohy, please tell us how you discovered this incredible retired protein hypothesis and what the journey has been like for you.
Introduction. The story really goes back to almost 20 years, 2002, when I realized that we had no vaccines for diseases that we confront with age, like breast cancer and ovarian cancer. The most notable examples of retired self-proteins is in the fact that as we age, our hair turns white. And it turns white because the pigment in our hair, pigment follicles, the pigmentary units, no longer makes the hair color pigment. And but every tissue does this, including the breast and the ovary. And I call these retired tissue-specific proteins. And I thought if I could mount an immune response against these retired proteins in women before they develop breast tumors or ovarian tumors, and if these tumors express this retired protein, I could provide them with what we call preemptive immunity or prophylactic immunity, because the protein is no longer made in any normal tissues. And that's the basis for my breast cancer vaccine and for my ovarian cancer vaccine that also we think can prevent endometrial cancer.
Well, Dr. Tuohy, why was it so hard to get the funding?
Well, this is a novel idea, and the medical community is a bit skeptical. I mean, the entire community, I think, in my mind, kind of was obsessed with therapeutic cancer vaccines. They decided that cancer vaccines should be different from childhood vaccines, and that we use them to treat. And so there's an enormous amount of energy and funds and medical attention, research attention on using cancer vaccines to treat cancer, which I think is like allowing Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world, allowing him a 30-meter head start and a 100-meter sprint is very difficult and heroic to let your immune system catch a tumor that has a head start. You can't catch Usain Bolt, and I think it's very difficult to catch tumors that have a head start in growth. So that's one reason that it was novel, it was different. I was treated my ideas were treated pretty much as utopian thinking. I mean, I got so many grant reviews back and so many grant rejections. I think I lost count at 15 or 17. I lost count. But I collected all of those critiques. And I always allow myself 2 days of being miserable after I get a critique that's negative, and then try to extract from it the goodness in there and see what I could do to address the concerns that were out there in the medical research community. And one of the concerns was which tumor expresses this protein that I target for the breast cancer vaccine, alpha-lactalbumin. It's a lactation protein. Women no longer lactate. Very few women lactate after the age of 40. Only 3% of children are born to women after the age of 40, and yet 45% of breast cancers, or 95% of breast cancers occur in women over 40. So I thought, okay, well, which tumor would it be in? And after a lot of searching in databases and a lot of experimental analysis, we published a paper showing that the alpha-lactalbumin protein is expressed, the gene and the protein are expressed in triple-negative breast cancer. So triple-negative breast cancer, about 70 to 80% of the tumors, the breast tumors that women with BRCA1 mutations get is triple-negative breast cancer. So we have a high-risk population. This enabled me to convince, I think, pharmaceutical houses to actually do the clinical trials. Prevention trials take forever. There's so much follow-up. It's very costly. So there are lots of reasons why prevention is not really mainstream. It's just not there. The pharmaceutical companies, pharmaceutical industry evolved from the medieval alchemists, and it's a treatment. Their treatment, it's not their fault. It's not a conspiracy. It's just that's the way they are. That's the way they think. Everyone wants to get a disease and then take a pill and it goes away. So prevention is really not something that the entire industry or the medical research community is focused on. So it took a long time to prove my point, and that paper really proved the point when I showed that it was expressed in over 70% of triple-negative breast cancers. I was able to get a grant to do the phase 1 trial.
Thank you for that, for Dr. Tuohy. We'll come back to you in a little bit as well. Now, let's look and meet the women behind the pink vaccine, whose fundraising and social media efforts were an essential part of achieving the funds necessary to finally test this vaccine in women. And we're going to hear from Laura Frank and Leanne Best, who not only created a fundraiser, but a movement which I will let them explain to you. But ladies, it's an honor to have you here, and thank you, and tell us all about your Breaks for Breast.
Thanks for having us, Judy, and I apologize in advance if I get teary-eyed because, it's hard to believe the day's finally here. My mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2008, and that's what pulled me into the cancer arena. And she was a social worker by trade, so she was very open to always support a good cause. And once she was diagnosed, that's what she did. And I'm not sure if people know, but ovarian cancer symptoms are very common. Bloating and nausea, fatigue. How many of us women have those all the time anyway? And so she wanted to make a statement, and she started visiting doctors' offices, and she would leave little cards that had all the symptoms on it. So all the women that were in these offices would see these cards and recognize ovarian cancer symptoms. And So I guess I have a little bit of my mother. Right. And in 2011, Leanne and I were at dinner, and we just started chatting. And I wanted to do something to support what my mother was doing and how she was feeling. And Leanne and I started chatting and realized that breast cancer and ovarian cancer are tied genetically with the BRCA1 gene. And since breast cancer has a lot more visibility than ovarian cancer at the time, especially, we had decided that we would try and move forward and support breast cancer research somehow. We didn't know how or what or who. And then that way we could still, or at least I could still get the word out about the ovarian cancer. And so at dinner on in September 2011, we chatted about doing something. And by October 1st, we had Breaks for Breasts ready to go. And our big challenge was finding somebody to give money to. Believe it or not, that was a huge challenge in the beginning. Leanne?
Right. Well, we had when we started Breaks for Breasts, we had two very specific goals in mind. Number one, every single penny we raised had to go to research. We did not want to mimic the fundraisers that were out there already, where so much of the money went to the skyscrapers and the salaries and things of that nature. We wanted this to be a pure grassroots effort. And it was very surprising how difficult it was to find somebody that really aligned with our vision, a grassroots effort supporting a great cause. So honestly, we looked north, south, east, and west, and I'm not kidding when I say that. And we spoke to so many people or companies that raised money for breast cancer research and things of that nature. But no matter how we sliced it, we were looking at 32-page contracts, or, we had to pay them money to give them money. The whole thing just didn't make any sense. And it definitely did not align with what Laura and I were thinking. I was expressing these views at a Business Networking International meeting one day to a friend, and she happened to go back to the office. And within an hour, I had a phone call from Nancy Johnson, who is Dr. Justin Johnson's mom that works in Dr. Tuohy's lab. He's kind of his right-hand guy. And she's like, stop. Before you go any further, you need to talk to Dr. Tuohy. And Laura and I did, and that was all she wrote. I mean, you hate to say it, but it was kind of like love at first sight. We just knew in our gut the moment we started talking to him that he was our guy. I mean, he was our vision. Prevention is the cure. I mean, I don't know that Laura said it, but her mom didn't pass away from the cancer. She passed away from the cure. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Tuohy is saying, we don't want the radiation. We don't want the chemo. We don't want the surgeries. Let's throw all of that away and never have to deal with it. And boy, Laura and I, just our gut, everything about Dr. Tuohy and what he was trying to accomplish just spoke to us. And he was the perfect match for what we wanted to accomplish.
So then in 2011, we got 5 independent auto repair shops on board. And I don't know, Leanne, if you want to talk about the how it works, how Breaks for Breasts works, before we talk about all the accomplishments and all the support we've gotten.
The program's pretty simple, and it's really a win-win for everybody. So the repair shop, we go to our vendors, the vendors that supply our parts. And we say to them, hey, how about for the month of October, you just give us free brake pads? Well, first they look at us like we're crazy. And then we explain to them that they are going to be our first call for all of our parts that month, because in most cases, auto repair shops have several vendors that they count on. But in turn for you giving us free brakes, you're going to be our first call on everything. We will exponentially increase your business, therefore offsetting the cost of the free brake pads. Nice and easy. The consumer comes in, they are able to get free brake pads or shoes the entire month of October. The consumer simply pays for any other parts that are needed for that brake job, might be rotors or calipers, and they pay for the labor. So let's just say in an instance, maybe the brake job was $300. They got the pads for free. There was still $200 in labor and rotors and whatever those parts may be. We will then donate 10% as a repair shop to the Cleveland Clinic Breast Cancer Vaccine Research Fund. So it's just a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the consumer. It's a win for breast cancer. It's a win for the repair shops. I mean, there's just no downside to it.
So we came up with that, and in 2011, we had 5 local shops in the Cleveland area who got on board, and we were able to raise $10,000. And Leanne and I kind of looked at each other, pinched each other, said, "Whoa, this is kind of
That's pretty good."
Yeah. So we started the movement, and next year we had 32 shops on board, and we were surprised. We raised about $35,000. And so then, so how did we grow? We belong to networking groups, and we got the word out through our networking groups, through industry groups. And you know, the AT&T commercial, I think it is, where so 2 people talk to 2 people, and then 4 people talk to 2 people, and 8. And that's just what happened. It was just like we found Dr. Tuohy networking. That's how we got everybody on board, was through our networking and word of mouth in the beginning. So fast forward, in 2011, we raised $10,000 with 5 shops. And last year we hit our 10-year anniversary. 2020 was our 10-year anniversary. And we passed the $1 million mark on money raised to support the research for the breast cancer vaccine. So incredible, a lot of tears, a lot of celebrating. It was like Leanne says, is like, go ahead, Leanne.
Well, I think, you know, like Laura said, year 1, we raised 10,000. Last year, we raised $250,000. It was even hard to say it, $250,000. We were blown away. And the beauty of it, like I was saying about the grassroots effort, we work on a budget of literally 0. It's Laura and I as volunteers and a budget of 0. So if we need money for anything, our website was gifted to us by one of our industry vendors. We get a lot of support when we needed to trademark things or whatever. It's all, you know, somebody just writes a check out of their kindness of the heart. But every single penny raised has gone to that over $1.1 million we've collected. It's been crazy. We
even got to be on an industry magazine cover with Dr. Tuohy.
Yeah.
So that was a first. That was great. But the thing is, the support of the industry is incredible. So it's not only all the independent repair shops that come on board, it's our industry vendors, marketing companies, shop management software companies. They're all coming on board to support in one way or another. Like Leanne said, our website is sponsored by one of and maintained by one of these companies. In the beginning, I was Googling, how do I run a website? How do I start a website? It was WordPress. I mean, it was a bit of an effort, but
understated,
a little archaic, but it did the job. So so we could organize a bit. But I just wanted to say that anybody out there who thinks that, oh, I'm just one person and I can't make a difference, you can make a difference. That's where it starts, with one person, and the word will spread. And so never think that you can't make a difference, because it is possible.
Well, what you've done is just nothing short of a miracle, really. And we know Dr. Tuohy has told all of us how valuable what you've done, because not only did you do incredible fundraising, but you also raised the awareness of the vaccine pretty much around the country, which was also invaluable. So,
you know, Judy, it was very humbling to see how many people were touched and are touched by breast cancer or cancer in general. And they would call and reach out to us and say they want to participate because of their mother or their sister or their wife. And it was, like I said, humbling. Just, I don't know if people understand how many people go through this.
mm-hmm.
It's traumatic. It's just awful.
Yeah. There was one point where it really came home to me. I was giving a wedding shower for my newest daughter-in-law, and we were sitting at a round table of 8 people, and my mom was there. And my mom was the only one at the table that hadn't had breast cancer. So
Wow.
all of my 2 sister-in-laws and all of my friends that were sitting at that table had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was like, this is like, should not be. This is something has to really be done. So do you have any more that you want to add right now, Laura or Leanne?
I think, just overall, we're just incredibly grateful for an industry. Who would ever think that auto repair would be such a wheel in the cog to end breast cancer? I mean, it's an incredible story.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for not only that, but for being here today. And our hearts are grateful for what you ladies have done.
And Judy, I'm sorry, I do want to add one more thing.
Sure.
People say it's what we done. None of the money we raised, the $1 million+ would have been possible without every single person who makes up Breaks for Breasts.
Mhm.
No, it's the shops, it's our industry that make Breaks for Breast as powerful as it is. So I just want to give a shout out, like Leanne said, we're blessed to be part of an incredible industry.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And we will make sure that gets put in the credits as well. So now we're going to hear from Marjorie Moyer, who started a group of women called Women Who Care about breast cancer. And thank you for coming, Marjorie, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I'm delighted to share my experience and thoughts about supporting Dr. Tuohy's work for almost 10 years, the last half of his 20-year journey. 10 years ago, the Cleveland Clinic chose Dr. Tuohy's vaccine research at the clinic's most important scientific advance of the year. Little did we know how long it was going to take to reach this point, and I became interested and involved to help raise funds to continue his research because my family has a history of breast cancer. So we're looking at this vaccine for the women who are alive today, but perhaps more importantly, for our daughters and our granddaughters. And as they mature into that danger age of 50 and over, they will have a choice of a vaccine versus a mastectomy. So I began by thinking about women's organizations that would support fundraising and, as importantly, awareness. And 2 different organizations came to my mind because they were organizations to which I had belonged for many years, and I knew about their successes in fundraising. The first group was a group of 5 Greek Orthodox Christian churches in Cleveland and Akron, my hometown and my place of birth. I found also the Junior League of Cleveland was very interested in our cause. So together, I worked with a co-chair, Susan Larson, and we encouraged these groups to have events, to educate, and to raise money. We needed awareness and funding. Over the years, these women in these 2 different groups had meetings, they had luncheons, they had style shows. And the big surprise was my beauty shop. The 2 owners of the beauty shop invited their staff to come in on a Sunday, which was of course a day off, and put in a whole day of work. And instead of giving the money to the owners or sharing it for themselves. They gave the total amount to Dr. Tuohy's cause. And so Susan Larson and I, for the last 10 years, have been creating events, inspiring events, educating, and creating funds. In addition to the groups we've collected individually, the word has gotten out from those groups into the bigger community. And in that early period, we were receiving gifts, anything from $10 to $10,000. But the time came when we knew we had to reach a wider audience. And by that time, we had given ourselves a name. We were a coalition, Women Who Care About Breast Cancer. It was that group that in 2017 produced an hour-long program in front of a live audience at IdeaStream, a PBS affiliate. Dr. Tuohy participated, as did 4 other expert panelists that he had carefully selected. And these were people from across the country who were also professionals dealing with this very difficult problem. You can watch this program on your YouTube, Prevention is the Cure Ideas. And it was at this gathering that I got to meet the Breaks for Breast and Tony Turchi. So I was so joyful that we women could gather up and include one another in whatever we were doing so we could learn together. The next adventure that came the way of Susan Larson, my co-chair, and myself was an invitation by Judy Fitzgerald to go to Washington to meet with members of the House of Representatives to urge them to legislate the National Institute of Health. We needed more we needed more money from our federal government because the prevention was not considered as valuable as treatment. And so we wanted a better balance between more money for our cause of prevention is the cure, rather than our federal money being so heavily weighted on the treatment issue. Why did we go there? Well, this is shocking news. The National Cancer Institute has estimated that there will be 281,550 new cases of breast cancer in 2021, with an estimated death toll of 43,600. Now, that's the sad news. The good news is that the death rate has decreased as women turn to mammograms and begin being diagnosed at a much earlier stage. And therefore, their life expectancy is much longer generally than those who have late stage diagnosis. Now, what is the reason that we have, all of us, why have we continued our efforts for all these years? First is that we know women who have fallen victim to breast cancer and the terrible toll it takes. My co-chair, Susan Larson, put it so poignantly when she says, I get so tired of going to the funeral of my friend or family. But the second reason, and I would say that this is extra special, is the care and attention that Dr. Tuohy has showered upon us. He has taken us on lab tours. He has answered our phone calls. He has appeared in our events and answered the questions of those present who had so many personal questions, and he stayed a long time after the program. And most importantly, he has given us regular updates, and he has occasionally shared his frustration. Perhaps in addition to our financial contributions, we have provided him with the hope and the encouragement over the years that he needed to bring us to this happy day.
Thank you, Marjorie. That was great. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So now we go to Tony Turchi, who actually she's one of the very big blessings I got from this project, because we just have hit it off from day number one. And I have to say, we've gotten in a few little trouble with each other, good trouble with each other, right? But she's become a very dear friend, and I'll let her tell you about our escapades. But and Tony is the only one on this within this group who has lived the life of triple negative breast cancer. And she had no idea when she was doing all this work that it was actually for her disease. So she was doing it for everyone. So anyway, without ado, I will call upon Tony. Tony, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Judy, for your constant tenacity and perseverance and determination. You never falter, and I am so blessed. You have become one of my best friends, and I would have never met you without my disease. So I was misdiagnosed in 2010. My OBGYN ignored a tumor on my breast for over 4 months. I knew it was growing. He kept telling me it was a duct tissue. So in March of 2011, I contacted the doctor and I said, I'm no longer asking. He actually even delivered my baby. That's how long I had been with him. I said that I'm no longer even asking. I'm demanding an MRI, and I want it this afternoon at downtown main campus, Cleveland Clinic. And 24 hours later, not only was I diagnosed with the triple negative, but it metastasized already to 4 lymph nodes. So 4 days later, literally, my husband and I met at the Cleveland Clinic, and we were surrounded with 4 doctors to inform me that I had one of the most lethal forms of the disease. And 2 days later, I was sitting in a chemo chair for the next 4.5 months, followed by a double mastectomy, followed by 36 rounds of radiation. And when you walk out the door following your year-long standard medical treatment, unfortunately with triple negative, there is no adjuvant treatment. So you're just kind of existing and waiting for the fallout, which is a significant of 18 months if you can make it through. Milestone. Another was the 36-month milestone. And then, of course, if you could make it past the 5 years, you become you have a very good chance of a non-reoccurrence of the disease. But I was into the double mastectomy part when someone introduced me to Dr. Vincent Tuohy. I had no idea at the time that it was triple negative. It was just strictly for my sisters in cancer, that he had been working on a vaccine to prevent the disease from happening at all. And so I contacted him and we met, and it's been 10 years in the making. A lot of downs, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But I met these women here throughout my journey, and none of them experienced the disease themselves, but they had my back. They were working as advocacies for my disease and for my sisters in cancer's disease. I met a lady named Christy Rosen 2 months into my triple negative. She had the exact same diagnosis as myself. And she started the fundraising efforts for her disease through me, and all of her monies went to my foundation. I launched my foundation in April of 2012, and I've had races and art galleries and galas and all kinds of events. But more than that, via social media, we were able to just spread the word of this disease, triple negative. Christy, unfortunately, didn't make it past 10 months. And the one thing that she always wanted to do prior to passing away was meet Dr. Tuohy. So I took her down to the Lerner Research Institute at the Cleveland Clinic, and Dr. Tuohy and I and Christy had lunch together. And again, she had one last final fundraising effort for the doctor. And I think of her today, if she could only know right now what Dr. Tuohy had accomplished in this 10 years. It's just really, it's just unbelievable. But as Marjorie mentioned, there's approximately 280 to 300,000 women per year that are diagnosed with breast cancer. And I just don't understand why it took so long. Why did it take this long? And with all due respect to COVID, with the utmost respect to COVID and it being a pandemic, I see how fast that FDA processed the vaccines. But we're losing in the disease of breast cancer, we're losing mothers and wives and sisters, and it just goes on. And we're finally here. And I really feel in my heart and soul that this is just the beginning. I'm just so incredibly proud of you, Dr. Tuohy. You never stopped. If I had a phone call, it was returned within 30 minutes. And even if you couldn't talk to me, you called me back to let me know the time that you could. And when I wanted to meet with you, you were there. When I wanted to ask a question, you were there. When the three, Margie, Judy, and myself went to Washington, D.C. to lobby, you were there. And I'm so incredibly honored to be part of the fundraising efforts and the awareness of your vaccine. And it's the greatest legacy you're going to leave behind in this world. And I'm so honored and just pleased to know you. And I, on behalf of my sisters and I in breast cancer, I love you. I have grown to love you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you're doing for us.
Thank you, Tony, for that.
Thank you very
And
much, Tony.
yeah, I think we all can agree that we've all grown to love you, Dr. Tuohy. Okay, so my personal story began in 2009 when I was diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer. I was considered a rare case because I had 3 different types of cancer. I had both ductal in situ, lobular in situ, but the tumor that would have probably taken my life was invasive ductal carcinoma, which was not uncovered until I sought a second opinion. It did not show on the mammogram. That's an important message to get out to women, that you really should follow up. So when my treatment ended, I felt a great need to research diet and lifestyle strategies that might help me to prevent recurrence. That was when I discovered Dr. Tuohy's work. I was amazed that there was a possibility of a true cure, and that this horrible disease, which was reaching epidemic proportions, could be prevented. I needed to find out. So when you survive cancer, you do strange things. So I decided, why not just call him? So I picked up the phone and I called his office, and his assistant answered the phone, and I told her I was interested in the vaccine, and she said, well, give me your number and I'll talk to Dr. Tuohy about it. So the next day, Dr. Tuohy himself called me and advised me that the only reason that the vaccine hadn't progressed was lack of funding. And it was that day that I became fully committed to support his research. During the 11 years since, myself, along with the women who have spoken today, have dedicated themselves to moving this research to the clinic. This clinical trial means the world to all of us, our children and grandchildren. And Dr. Tuohy, again, we must thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your tenacity and perseverance. Presently, I am honored to serve as an advocate on the phase 1 clinical trial team for the vaccine. I can tell you it's been 4 years of riding a roller coaster, as there have been so many ups, but also just as many downs. As others have said, there have been times it seemed there would be too many obstacles to finally achieve our goal to test this vaccine in humans. A further challenge has been explaining to our donors and supporters that yes, we are still working, and yes, we still need support. Perhaps one of the most frustrating times was during COVID shutdown, which probably delayed the trial by at least a year. For women with this disease, 12 months is a precious amount of time that they can't afford to lose. The majority of these women, as Tony mentioned, will suffer a recurrence within the first 3 years, and the risk remains up until 5 years. You have heard from my friends about our 2019 lobbying expedition. At one of our weekly vaccine trial meetings, Dr. Tuohy threw out the idea and challenged us with taking on Congress to create a women's health initiative. This request for funding would dedicate funding specifically to conduct prevention clinical trials for women's cancers. We didn't understand at the time what taking on such a project would entail, but nonetheless, Tony, Marjorie, and I agreed to head to Congress for a 3-day Washington adventure. An adventure it was. In the interest of time, I will not discuss the time and perseverance it took to gain these appointments, but we did meet with 5 representatives from our home states of Florida and Ohio. The net result from our 3-day mission was that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, herself a triple negative survivor and BRCA positive patient, honored our request, and our funding language was included in the proposed House budget. And to our great amazement, it actually passed. We're of course elated, but then when it reached the Senate, although it was still included, it was watered down quite a bit to say gynecologic cancer clinical trials, and the word prevention was taken out. However, it still reads and has loose enough language that there are now funds available through NCI's Prevent program. So Dr. Tuohy, they just recently, the Cleveland Clinic actually had an article that talked about the power of philanthropy. So I was going to invite you to maybe say a few words about that.
Well, there's really only 3 sources of money for me for any research project, and one is grant money, and the other is philanthropic donations, and the third would be sponsored research money. So if you're lucky enough to get a corporate partner, and I try to take advantage of all 3 sources because I need all 3 sources. It's just, that's the way it is. But people think that just because I get a sponsored research group or a licensing partner with a very small pharmaceutical company like Anixa, that I have, and I have to say, boy, if I don't say this, I can possibly make money on my technologies, and so I have to make a statement, a conflict of interest statement. It's a good time to make it here. I have equity in Anixa, my licensing partner for my 2 vaccines, and I could make royalties from the Cleveland Clinic's partnership with Anixa. So I could possibly make money on this. What an amazing thing that a scientist makes money. But I haven't made anything yet. I get a salary and that's it. I started the trial, so there's no need for any more money. Yes, there is. This is the first step in a long journey. It's phase 1. There's phase 2. There's phase 3. This has to keep going, and I'd like to keep my team intact. There are only 4 people and myself, 5 people. I'd like to keep them intact because they're the ones that have made this happen. And it's just absolutely essential to have philanthropic donations. I still need the money. And please don't think just because I have money from other sources that I don't need any more money, because that doesn't make any sense. This will not happen without philanthropic support. It's really become, it's not even my vaccine anymore. It's not. It's your vaccine. You're part of this whole effort, and you can take credit for it because you should. And I will give you credit anytime I get a chance, because you folks have been incredible supporters. Marjorie, Tony, Judy, and the Breaks for Breast program, Leanne, and Laura. And so I would never have been able to do it without you folks. And I encourage the continuation of this effort because I'm still willing. I'm getting old. I should retire. I should hang up those cleats. But as long as I still have resources to continue, I will do it. And I will try and get these vaccines into clinical trials and through clinical trials and see if we can prevent these diseases. There's no reason, to me, they're just preventable. These are preventable diseases. And plus we need to create awareness. It's very important for people to recognize there's a great unmet need. I think that's what I've tried to do, is point out that, hey, we don't have vaccines to prevent adult diseases like we have vaccines to prevent childhood infectious diseases. We can do it. We have the ability. We know enough about the immune system. That's what it's there to keep us healthy. It simply needs instructions. And the instructions are vaccines. Vaccine is to the immune system, this incredible biologic force, telling the immune system what to do in the same way that word processing is software telling your operating system on your computer what to do. So vaccines are just software for your immune system, and we can do this.
I would like to thank everyone who's watching this, who donated or supported us in our advocacy efforts. You have always responded generously with your time, talent, and monetary support. Please know that this milestone in finding a cure for breast cancer by prevention would not have been possible without your love, efforts, and support over these last 10 years. Thank you again for watching, and for more information, please visit the websites of Sisters for Prevention, the Tony Turchi Foundation, Breaks for Breasts, and Women Who Care. So stay tuned for new updates on the pink vaccine trial. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless.